Chef Philippe with Can't Beat 'em, Eat 'em. And I got my very good friend here, Michael Johnson. Chef Michael Johnson, how are you?
I'm good, Chef. How are you?
So what are you doing now?
Well, I'm a performance chef. I work for LSU Athletics. I actually work for Chartwell's at LSU Athletics, and essentially what I do is I fuel athletes. We have 22 sports there, both genders through every type of body type that you can imagine, and so keeping those athletes fueled and recovering is what I do.
You do travel with the LSU football team, huh?
I do, yeah.
What do you exactly do when you travel with those guys?
It changes year to year depending on who's in charge and what they need that year, and kind of as we develop the program, where we think things need to go. But essentially, I go in and kind of act as a liaison with the on the road culinary team at the the road hotel or wherever we're traveling to, and make sure that our athletes are getting fed to our standards with the foods of quality, cooked to temperature, just making sure that it's safe and sanitary. And, most of the time we're dealing with professional chefs.
Yeah.
You go in there with a non-threatening demeanor and one with respect, and you build camaraderie with the chefs on the road. And
that's good.
And, it's kind of building a relationship, but it's also meant to do so in order to get the quality of food and experience that you're looking for our teams.
Yeah. That's good. That's very good. What about you feed those guys? And I saw one little episode on Facebook about that alligator that you put out there. Tell me about that a little bit.
Well, there's been a couple of times we cooked alligator. There was one year when Coach O was there that we had to pull the alligator back because he was questioned on the radio if we cooked alligator, the days that we
play Florida.
Played Florida, and he was like, "No, we don't do anything like that." So I was like, "Jeez," but we do toy around with fun stuff.
But you did cook an alligator.
No, we did. I have several times. Yeah, it's not just about Florida. It's about it being Louisiana and having a local species there, and teaching kids about the lean pot. Like lots of people eat alligator, and it's lean meat. It's edible. Some people kind of snub their nose to it, but it eats well.
You know that I was instrumental in promoting alligator meat back in the early 80s.
I know this about you, yeah.
Yeah, when I was young.
Yeah.
So natural resources, it's one of the things that I like to talk about with you, the sustainability. You wrote me a letter for my book, and I wanted to go kind of a little bit about that letter, what your thought about eating invasive species, protecting the environment, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not just about me. It's about our generations behind us, and keeping things safe and secure for them as well. And I am an outdoorsman. I'm a sustainable minded person as well. So, all the things matter. That there's no such thing as an insignificant invasive species. They have their impact on our environments, whether it be a plant or an animal or an insect. So I think if the adults around us are not willing to listen to us, then we go to the youngsters and teach them, how to be more aware of these things. And it's a generational thing. Our children need to be worried about it.
Yeah, for sure. So we worked together quite a few times, and you were one of my right-hand guy with Chef Colin, who was here earlier. With my restaurant in my school there called Philippe's. Tell me about your experience with me working at the.
Yeah, we had some good times. I think one that sticks out in my mind really is the celebration, not celebration, but the event that we had after 9/11.
When we raised the money for the fire in New York City.
That's right.
We raised 35,000, something like that. And we were the first one actually to do that.
It was an experience, having
the support.
We pushed 10 meals out, 10 courses out from a different restaurant.
Yeah.
And we had 10 restaurants come through, set up in there temporarily, push, and go.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen anything like that
Yeah,
before. It was an extraordinary amount of organization.
Yeah.
To have
It was work.
yeah, to have people catering in through your back door, use your equipment. I think we did 1 in 10, first and last dishes, and I remember Mama Gina was there.
Yeah.
And she's just she was and it still is an extraordinary woman. I
Well,
really
let's talk about Gino's restaurant a little bit. Gino is one of my dear friends, and Mama Marino passed away a few years back. She was in the mid-90s, literally, but she spent her life in the kitchen. She was absolutely an extraordinary woman out there. And she came in and did a little dish, and we worked with them. And actually, I intend to have her grandson on the show down the road, Vincent, which you met.
I have.
He cooked Asian cook too as well, so we will definitely get him on the show. So when we did that, we also have a chef that passed away too, Vernon Roger.
Yeah,
You remember,
I
with the
remember.
Nutria?
Yeah.
Yeah, we came up and we actually cooked nutria meat, and another invasive species that is destroying the natural wildlife habitat and so on here in Louisiana. So on the Asian Cup, what was your experience working with me on that?
We've had several experiences with it.
Yeah.
One of the really coolest was when we went out to the river up north, and went out
Simsport, Louisiana.
Simsport, right?
Yeah.
And we went out with DNR and
The wildlife and fishery.
wildlife fisheries. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
And shocked the water and
Yeah.
saw the fish come up. It was an extraordinary experience. And we had somebody got struck by a fish that day. I think one of the ladies that was videoing or something did. But you really haven't experienced it and really don't understand how thick and plentiful they are and problematic they are until you have that experience. And we had some deep water that day. I think the spillway was pretty high that day, but we still found fish, and they were everywhere. And I've had the experience with fish. Well, actually, we went out on Bayou American with that must have been 15 years ago. You took me out with a fisherman, and
Richard.
yeah, and that was the very first time, and I remember laughing, thinking how funny it was that these fish are jumping out of the water, and I myself had a near strike, and this was a 25-pound fish coming at me like a missile, and it hit in the boat just inches away from me, and I suddenly had a change of heart, like, my God, that thing would have done some damage to me if it would have hit me, and there was a reality check, and how many there were jumping when we were in that boat. And I remember us having conversation about the potential for the fishermen to make more money off of it rather than selling it to dog food. And you came to Seattle when I worked for the Mariners, and
yes,
we
tell us about that story, because that was interesting.
Yeah. So we made an attempt to push it to the Mariners, and I couldn't get my boss on task with it, but when I worked for the Seahawks, we actually put it on the menu for a little while. We ended up subcontracting those stands out, and they completely changed. So it wasn't by any, it didn't have anything to do with the product, but there was a change.
That was an experience for me, because there was a little short episode. Is your I guess manager of the food. She came in, if you remember that, with a timer. Remember that?
Yeah.
And she goes, well, let's see how much that product's going to cost me, in labor and on and on. And I said, okay. I remember we opened the case, and it was already breaded and ready to go. So we put up a little fish cake, probably an ounce and a half or so each, and we put them in the fryer, and she timed the thing, and it took probably 5 minutes to get it ready. And she said, oh, wow, this is what we're looking for. Remember, because it's convenient for use.
Yeah, we made we made a po' boy out of it.
Yeah. It's important to understand the demand of such product, especially when we're looking up down the road to open a research center. That's really the main thing, invasive species research center, tied up with a commercial kitchen, when we can establish the guideline, the recipe, having the FDA involved, make sure that each invasive species are safe to eat when the product is finished. But again, you got to understand the demand of the product, and the demand is, have something convenient for user. When they go out there, they can microwave it, or that's what needs to be done. And without those research, we can't do anything
Yeah.
with those invasive species. I mean, I always encourage people in the wild or living in the countryside. That's what the book is about with Easy Recipe, is to if you encounter a nutria, wild boar, whatever, don't be afraid. Cook it,
Yeah.
because it's good food. It's natural protein right there for you. Um, and that only can put a little dent to the population. We know that, but we got to start somewhere. And perhaps when down the road, as we move along, we could literally have a processing center for Asian carp, wild boar, nutria meat, plants. I mean, all kind of other invasive species that are out there destroying the ecosystem.
Yeah.
What do you think about that idea?
Well, as you're talking, I'm thinking, it's about the fish that they're impacting as well. I'm a bass fisherman. I'm an offshore
Okay.
fisherman. I fish for sac-a-lait or crappie, whichever you call it. And I don't think that the fishermen understand that. Also, most people don't react until it's too late, and then you're reacting versus proactive, right? Like I think that. Bass will frustrate the hell out of me, but I don't want to see them go. I've thrown my fishing pole out of one or two of them, but that doesn't mean I want to see them disappear, right? And so I think being proactive about this, and at this point, it's not even proactive, I don't think. I think to some degree we are reacting a little bit. It's time to react, because the moment to proact was 5 years ago, I think, when you were pushing it then, and we still need to be pushing on it now. Yeah.
Well, I did say that in my past podcast. My adventure, and somewhat. When I was shipping those frozen Asian carp to Vietnam, when I went down there,
Yeah.
and trained those people making a fish cake, and we were on the verge actually to cut out a big deal with one of the big food service operation, and then COVID came up.
Yeah.
And shut it. I mean, the world shut down,
Yeah.
and all that kind of pretty disappeared. So we want to reenact this and make it work as not to go to Vietnam, but doing it here.
Yeah.
Having a product from USA, made in USA, processed in USA. And that was my little negative thing, is that it was a product of USA, but it was processed in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit touchy for
Yeah.
many folks. So now the goal is, okay, let's do it here in the USA, because it needs to be here.
It does.
And, when you think about this, over 90% of the fish consumption or seafood consumption in general is imported. And what we're eating, we don't even know really how it is processed, what they feed them with. And I've seen some videos that are pretty scary, how they handle, those fish farm. My goodness. And we eat that like there is no tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's time to be proactive for sure with all this, especially fish. I mean, let's look at about the availability of a wild-caught fish here in Louisiana,
Yeah.
all right? Or in America.
Anywhere, yeah.
You know how much it costs to buy a fish of snapper or anything of that line of wild-caught? We're talking about within $30 pound.
They say
if you don't
fishing
want
is
that.
the most expensive free dinner you've ever had.
You're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. But so the Asian carp are wild caught,
Yeah.
and the nutrition fact is really supporting the fact that we should really process those fish
Yeah.
for human consumption. But yet, it's a carp, it's an invasive species, but we came out over the years working hard in developing a new name, silverfin, because we didn't want to talk about carp, but everybody knows that silverfin was carp, but it is, the mentality behind the fish. So, when I was serving those Asian carp cake in university dining hall, you should have seen those youngsters understanding what we were doing,
Yeah.
saving the ecosystem, literally, from this invasive species for this generation, the young generation, future generation. That's important, because let's face reality. Billions of dollars have been spent into that fish.
Yeah. Electric fields and zappers, and my God, it's crazy.
It's unbelievable what I have seen, read, and the money that has been thrown at it, and yet look at where we at.
Yeah. You know, I remember when I was in Seattle. And you understand that when I source foods, it's always sustainable. If the fish are caught or the shrimp are netted wherever they're from, that there's going to be a fish. There's going to be a line of responsibility that is tangible that you can research and know what boat caught it and where they came from and the fishery that it came from. And being sustainable is super important to me. And both in Seattle and here in Louisiana, I tried to research, if we wanted to buy that species of fish, where it was at on the sustainability list.
Yeah,
Is it red? Is it green?
absolutely.
They don't even identify it. It's not because it's an invasive species, because it's not a natural occurring species. They consider it a nuisance, and so they don't, they don't even identify it as a resource.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's wild.
Well, I succeeded a couple of years ago to have that listed on Monterey Bay Aquarium, which is part of the fishery sustainability.
Yeah.
To put him as a sustainable
Yeah.
fish, and some people could not understand that because it's an invasive species. I can if it's invasive, that means
It's not going anywhere.
yeah,
Right.
it's a surplus.
Yeah.
So might as well put it up on the list until we can reach the point with commercial harvest to remove those fish out of the water. We're not here to eradicate. You can't eradicate those fish.
Yeah.
But if you work with the fisheries officials, policymakers, you could literally, on harvesting those fish commercially, put a value on it, create jobs, but you could reduce that population where they can actually live in harmony with other fish without displacing native fish like the bass or the crappie or whatever it is that are out there. So it can be done. And of course, what I do, I get criticized a lot, all right? And some of those, I guess, scientists, biologists, they will say, oh, the food industry will put a very little dent on the problem, I'm wasting my time. And I always brought up the example of Paul Prudhomme in the late 80s. What he did was one fish, one recipe, the black and red
Redfish.
Yeah, almost eradicate the population.
Yeah.
We talked about that with Gary Tilly, who used to be the wildlife and fishery, inland fishery specialist. And here's a man that did it. So we can do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We can do it. I mean, chefs are in position to put an impact to this.
You know what else is crazy, Chef, is that people will feed their kids hot dogs and processed foods.
McDonald's or
it's
whatever.
Full of nitrates.
I hate
and
to say the
preservatives.
name, but fast food industry, let's put it this
You
way.
can, I'm not going to, but we all know who they are, right?
Yeah.
Processed foods are awful for you, it's...
Tell me about it.
And the sugars and stuff, that they put in processed foods, and I don't understand how human beings as a whole can look at something that's fresh and quality, just thumb their nose to it so easily.
Well, here come the convenience. It's easy, it's fast.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was in a grocery store. I used to have a TV show called Tips from the Pros, and what I used to do is I used to go to the grocery store, demonstrate that you can buy fresh product, make a quick meal at home, sit down on the dining table, have a conversation with the family, and eating fresh food, nutrition, with nutrition value, So anyway, I was in a grocery store one time, and I saw this lady ahead of me, and she was, well-dressed. You could see she was a professional. And she had a dozen of frozen kids' meal. And I have to ask her, I said, why are you buying this for your kids? And she said, let me tell you, she said, it's so convenient. 5 minutes on the microwave, and the kids love it. Yep. She goes, well, of course they're going to love it. If they're hungry, they'll eat anything. I mean, think about it. If they don't have no other choice, they're going to love that. So you know what I did? I went and bought one of these frozen, actually two of them, frozen kids' meals, and their promotion on that is such misguided. They got the pyramid of food and showing that actually it's healthy to eat and all that, but it's really misguided because you look at the nutrition fact.
Some of them, they call themselves chicken, and it's really a chicken product, right? It's a pureed soup of chicken, really.
It's a byproduct,
right.
What we call it. It's processed. So anyway, let me tell you the story because that's funny. So I went home and I looked at the instruction and I put it in the microwave. And they got a seal on it, and when I removed the seal when it was hot,
Wait, you ate this?
hold on, wait. I just wanted to see it. I
Yeah.
wanted to know from my viewer, talked about it. So I removed the seal, and that was 20 and some years ago. I removed the seal, and the smell, it was like sodium, and the
Yeah.
chemistry was like, whoa, I couldn't eat it. I
Yeah.
could not eat it. So I got a little dog at home, a Winnie dog called Stoli, by the way. The poor dog, we have to put him asleep not long ago. But so my dog will eat anything.
Yeah.
Mike, I mean, I'm swear when we're eating,
You walked
anything.
away from it, huh?
I mean, he'll, I just think I throw out the watermelon or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That dog will come and eat it. So I put that tray on the floor. The dog came up and smelled it, and then he ran away.
It looked at you like, what are you
I'm
doing?
dead serious.
Yeah.
I'm not making that up.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable for a dog to, with instinct, to understand right away that was literally poison for him. Here is
We can learn a lot from the creatures that live around us and we don't pay
you
attention
know,
to.
feeding your kids
Yeah.
with products like that. Come on,
You
man.
know, I don't know if you know Jamie Oliver. He's an English chef. He did
Yeah, I know
he
of
did,
him.
a test deal a while back, and it was probably 10 or 15 years ago. But he took grade school age kids and was feeding them the processed foods, chicken nuggies or whatever they call them, and
What they feed them with.
yeah, right, at schools. And then he took foods from the garden, fresh foods from the garden that were being plucked from the dirt and washed and cleaned, and fresh chicken and stuff like that. And you saw a behavioral difference in the kids, right? There was a behavioral difference in the kids that was just remarkable. And the kids were sitting still and they were paying attention. And those nutrients, when you go into the body and when the body's getting what it needs, behaviors change. You have more energy to focus, and you're like more cognitive thinking. And fish like this that are coming fresh versus something that comes out of a cardboard box. And I'm surprised you even figured out how to. I don't have a microwave.
Yeah.
And things that come out of a box, my kids laugh at me because I struggle. I'm just, what do you mean you put all this together at the same time? Like this is not how you cook.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to learn how to cook that way, and I want to teach my kids, how to cook fresh
I do the
food.
same thing. Cook at home,
Yeah.
man. Cook at home. It's fun. And it's good for you. You are what you eat. You eat healthy. You be healthy.
So I have to disagree a little bit here, because I think that with all the social platforms that are out there right now, that there's people who are pushing for healthier eating, healthier lifestyles, working out and such. And I think that there's a trend towards healthier eating to some degree. I think that the brand, if you watch TV, which I don't watch too much of, and television is turning more to live streaming, which I think is great, and it gives more control to the lay folk of the world, if you will, to have their say.
And what you want to watch.
Absolutely.
Too, you choose.
But if there's an interest in something, the kids can go find it and look at it and get information about it or opinions on it. And influencers are trying to make, and I think as a whole, trying to make good decisions for their bodies. And I think for the fresh food of the world, that's great.
Yeah.
Veganism and stuff like that,
Well,
it's wonderful if that's your choice. But
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this for a minute, because I got educated lately with what they call the plant food base.
Yeah.
Okay. And there is a little restaurant actually in Baton Rouge called a Plant Tree, and that's what they do. And when you look at those ingredients that they put in to create cheese or butter or even meat, we know that
Yeah.
the burger that and you look at the ingredient behind that you look at it and say, wow, some of the stuff here, man, we wonder what we're eating
Yeah.
here. So I'm not really a big fan of that, because I believe that you got to identify your food when you eat.
Yeah.
If I don't know what it is on my plate, I'm not going to eat it.
Yeah.
But one thing for sure, we are omnivores. Okay, omnivores.
agree.
We eat meat, fish,
yeah, Vegetables, yeah.
fruits.
Lots of human beings eat insects, believe it or not.
Well, I know in
Maybe
many.
not
Look,
Americans,
I
but yeah.
traveled the
But that's an
world.
omnivore. They eat what they need to.
Correct.
Yeah,
I traveled the world, as you know, and I have fried locusts
yeah.
and all the things of that nature. And I'm not, I will eat it. I mean, you
It's a
put it in front
protein
of me.
source. Yeah,
Absolutely. I'm open-minded when it comes to that.
yeah. Likewise.
But when I look at the trend, my daughter, for instance, my younger daughter, at one time turned to be veggie because all her little girlfriend at university they all want to be veggie,
Yeah.
blah blah blah. But I trained my daughter when she was younger to eat a steak once a week on the fish, and and she loved that. Well, that lasted, I would say, probably maybe 3 to 4 years.
Really?
The veggie,
Yeah. With a
thing,
little kicker.
But she went back
Yeah.
on wanted to eat.
Yeah.
She found out that Daddy is right.
Yeah.
I miss the meat intake. In my body, and she played tennis.
Your
She's
body telling
active.
you things, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Your body will tell you things,
Yeah.
and the thing about that is the media they always want to focus on both things, thinking that it's the answer for the new generation to come to be healthy.
Yeah.
To me, is the best diet in the world is to have a well-balanced meal.
Yeah.
Don't cut the fat 100%.
Yeah.
Don't cut the sugar 100%. Balance your meal every day, and you're going to have the best diet. And exercise, and you have the best diet.
I don't think that people who decide to go to that vegan vegetarian diet understand if they're an athlete, or if they don't even have to be an athlete, but if you burn 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day, how much food and vegetables? That is a table full of vegetables, to replace all that caloric and burn, and so, your calories to burn are going to be in your proteins and fats, healthy fats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's funny about that? At one time, I was reading a magazine about this. The calorie we'll spend after sport, but. I was reading this article about after a tennis match, because tennis is pretty physical. I'm going to tell you. I was watching some of these guys, the professional, playing 4 or 5 hours. That was nonstop. I mean,
Yep.
can you imagine the body, the all these calories you spend, the liquid you know what I'm saying, by transpiring and all. And I was reading this article. They were saying that actually drinking a beer or two after playing tennis or
Because the
any type
calories.
of exercise
Yeah.
will replace a lot of those nutrients you
Yeah.
lose. I said, beer? Wow.
I know some weightlifters that do that because of the calories. They're empty calories. Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting
Yeah.
because I like a good cold beer. So I said, oh, man, here you go. I'm on the right track here. So, but I'm fortunate I'm not overweight, and also, but again, eating healthy, it really is the key to have a good, healthy life down the road, especially when you're going to get older,
Yeah.
So those kids that, the parent that feed those kids with the fast food and those food, and we're talking about the kids' meal and all, this is not an answer to have healthy kids down the road. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
We talk about cancer, that it's everywhere and
Yeah.
all that. I mean,
Have you seen the show about I think it's centenarian, I may be saying that incorrectly, but it's about human beings that live to be 100 years old.
Yeah.
And there's like a spectrum of things that are kind of all in common when you speak to people or inquire into their lives, and it's always fresh food.
Mm-hmm.
It's always being involved in their
Correct.
food, knowing where their food comes from. There's also, a need to stay relevant at, past your 50s, and be relevant in people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a whole, Americans kind of forget about, like there's a relevancy and a need to have, people beyond 50, being active and teaching in your life. And that whole psychology behind it of living a slow life, not trying to constantly speed around and get this immediate gratification from things, and I think that lends itself back to the fishing. You know what I mean? Like if you teach your child to fish, you're giving them something that they can teach their child, and it's a life lesson that
Yeah.
you know.
Well, you fish, right? And you
Absolutely.
hunt. Okay. So you have met some of these people out there in the countryside, like I did, because I love hunting. I love fishing. I've done that all my life, and I thanks God for put me in connection with Mother Nature like I did. But I met some of those trappers and fishermen at, especially down the bayou side, the Venice, Louisiana, Port Sulphur, and all. And you see these guys that are healthy like you will not believe.
Yeah.
No 1 ounce of fat on their body,
Yeah.
and they eat from motherland.
Yeah.
They go to grocery store and buy what they need, flours or whatever to cook with. But those guys, do you think they go see the doctor like,
Right.
twice a month or once a week, like many people that I know do over here? As soon as they
Who
got a
has
little
time to
something
go to the
wrong.
doctor when you have to work 8 days a week, right?
Oh my goodness, those guys are unbelievable.
Yeah.
And they live to be 80, 90, and up to 100.
And they're also salt of the earth type of people. They're approachable and they'll talk to you about.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to say, oh, I don't go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't eat it. I cook at home. I got fish in the freezer. I got venison. I got wild boar. One time I was doing a little filming in down Port Sulphur, Louisiana. And so we stopped in this Satsuma farm, out there are a lot of them. And for the viewer, Satsuma, little orange, native of Louisiana, very good to eat. And this guy take us into his house, right? He said, well, let me show you what I got in my freezer. The guy opened the freezer, man, I'm not lying, and he had a whole alligator with skin on, rolled up and put up into the freezer. And I said, my God, we shot it on the video. And I said, my goodness, are you kidding? No, this is for wintertime. This is food. Let me tell you what he did. He brought up, so we have speckled trout for lunch. He treated for lunch. And he brought up a little bottle, Satsuma brandy.
Oh, man.
I'm telling you. And he got us a little shot of this. The injection of vitamin C I took that day, I guarantee you was 10 times, 100 times better than the COVID-19 or the flu shot you can get. I promise you,
Yeah.
man. I could feel it after I drank. I was like, whoa, look at this. I'm Superman. So, again, Mother Nature here, you have a lot to offer.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of waste out there. And when I see policymakers spending all these billions of dollars trying to eradicate proper, natural protein that could be easily translated to food, I'm like, we got to do something because you teamed up with me for a long time.
It's tough
So-
to, you can
So
walk.
tell us about that.
You can drive through certain neighborhoods and not see grocery stores, and there's liquor stores everywhere, and that's
In the countryside,
Yeah.
right? I saw that.
and
So
it's
people eat from the land in the countryside,
Yeah.
for sure, and they're much healthier than the city folks.
I think that people could slow down more as a whole. Take a look at themselves and slow their lives down a little bit. We all have the ability to make good decisions, and I think supporting the environment.
to us.
Yeah, I love
up to us.
Louisianans, man. They're passionate about the environment. They're passionate about fishing and hunting and everything else, and it's a good place to be.
I have met a few youngsters. I had one on my podcast actually not long ago, and he's a 21-year-old, and he went duck hunting, and he asked me to come in and help him out on cooking the duck and so on. But he did a good job on his own, and he understands the value of going hunting, bringing this natural protein, cooking the duck, for instance, eating the duck. And he made a good comment. He said, look, you go to the store and you buy a pound of bacon and you're going to spend $20. He said, man, I got 12 ducks out there.
$20 a buckshot.
I got 3 meals out there for almost nothing, and having fun at it.
Yeah.
And, we got to talk a little bit about that because he made a good point here. When you go to grocery store today, $100 bill don't go far. You know that. I mean, you buy groceries, you look at the bag and say, my goodness, what do I have in here, But when you filled up your freezers with goods from hunting or fishing, you got
Food as a whole. I mean, you go to a restaurant, and I'm not talking about a sit-down restaurant. I have been through fast food restaurants with my kids
And you
recently.
spend-
My God, $15 for a meal.
I mean,
You know that. I mean,
I know.
it's crazy. You know, the price of commodities. You know, this is not antibiotic free, hormone free chicken. This is, you know, this is commodity chicken that we're paying.
You know, you and I, we were smoking a cigar one evening, and we're talking about all that stuff. And you know, we're cigar smoker, but it's good we don't inhale smoke.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for you in a way because it kind of eases your mind. But
Yeah,
I'm not going to
absolutely.
promote smoking cigar. But we were smoking cigars, and you know, we were talking about the education system, and I was talking to you about, you know, if we could have this Vortex school training the young generation, the drop out of high school before they go bad on the street, with a trade profession that they can carry on as they grew up. And you know, when I grew up, you know, that's what I went through chef school. You know, it was paid by the government, and it saved my life literally. So I thanks that. But you made a comment there that really I haven't forget, and you probably forgot about that. But you said, chef, you said when you grew up, you know how many people were on the planet,
Yeah,
and I said, well, you know, it was about 3 billion, 3.5 billion. I do remember that. Today's 8 billion.
8.2 billion.
Eight
Yeah,
point two billion. So it does make a difference on
it
the choice
does.
that
Yeah,
we do. And I'll never forget that. I want you to emphasize on that particular the difference from yesterday to today, what the young generation is facing, and why, you know, they should take the outdoor, embrace the outdoor, and learn from that, and eat, you know, those resources that are available,
yeah.
plenty.
I
So
mean, there's a finite amount of space on this planet that we have, you know, and the human population continues to grow, and you know, at some point there may be a time and place where we don't have that capability to go out in the woods and enjoy a quiet seat in the
well,
woods, and
yeah, but let me say that to you. I think that before that happened, I think we're going to face a food shortage.
well, and that
You know,
was
and
where
that's
I was
what's going
going
to
to, you know, like we're overfishing
right.
our, you know, we're overfishing our, we need to be more sustainable about what we're doing, you know. There's the idea of what sustainability is keeps getting pushed around, you know, like we have fishing farms for, you know, certain species of fish that are, and you know, we call it sustainable because it's, we're not taking natural resources away, but then you look at what it's doing to those fish, and then
How they feed them.
yeah,
That
and
destroy.
the wild fish catch sickness from those fish as well, and so then we have to look and see, is that really sustainable or what, you know.
I was reading an interesting article not very long ago about those fish farm, and the density of the fish into those fish farm, the excrement that
Yeah,
they release every
yeah,
day,
it's crazy.
that poison the water.
Yes.
That really affect the surrounding,
Yeah,
for sure, the aquatic life in general.
yeah,
So, you know, there is always a catch on doing those things, try to cheat Mother Nature, but we have to. I mean, the growth of population, how can we feed? Let me tell you this. I was reading another article. I love to read those things. Where they were thinking about when it's going to reach 12 to 15 billion, you know, we're going to have a big problem on our hand
yeah,
on feeding humanity at that level. But we got to talk about the present day and let the young generation continue working toward that. Right now, we
I'm sorry.
wasting more food than we can possibly imagine, especially when it comes to invasive species. When you think about the money again that has been spent in feasibility study and trying to eradicate all those experiments they conducted, costing taxpayers millions, billions of dollars, and yet a fragment of that money could easily get those food process. I mean, those invasive species processed into food.
Yeah,
So when you look at that, you think that, to me, my grandchildren and your children and grandchildren, you're younger than I, they will have to said, looking up our era here, the what we call the modern history, human history, that we probably are the most wasteful era of all humanity
I
because
mean, there's a ton of people
you
on
agree
Earth.
with that?
I think that there's this. We have all these single-use things that are kind of use and throw away. Look at all the plastic bottles and crap that are
Oh
everywhere.
man.
And we're starting to do something about that. But like we have to look at water. Somebody explained this to me. With the polar caps melting, that natural or that fresh water melts into salt water, and it doesn't blend immediately. And so, there that fresh water doesn't. You don't have it as a usable source. You have to have a desalination
It's
process.
going to affect wildlife in
Not only
general.
that, if you consider how much water is in the human body, so
90%, something like that,
I think
right?
it's 70%,
Yeah.
but whatever it is,
Yeah.
and then multiply that by 8.2 billion. So part of the water shortage is in how much water is being consumed and held into a human body.
Yeah.
It's not evaporating. It's not going into the watershed. It's not coming back and being recirculated as rain. There's cities that are saying now that you can't hold water because that's impacting the watershed process. I mean, I don't know how it was at your house over the summer this year, but my pond dropped by 5 feet.
Oh, I know.
And
It
I've
was
never
very
seen that.
dramatic.
I've never seen that
No,
before in
no,
Louisiana.
not that long drought for sure.
Yeah.
That just the grass everywhere, turned yellow. I mean,
My turtles were swimming in mud this
no, I
summer.
mean,
Yeah.
it's dramatic, and
Yeah.
there is so many question marks for the future.
I don't know if you've seen this or not, but they've changed I grow plants as well. I'm a green thumb, and they've changed the hardy zones, like 1 through 10. So they've changed Louisiana and the zones as well this past year. They rezoned the world into the growing zones this past year because because the climate has changed so much.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. People should pay attention to that.
So you and I, you remember we went and do a little competition in New Orleans. It
Yeah.
was a fun little thing, and we have with the Navy. It was actually the French Navy and the U.S. Navy together, and the chef on each vessel. It was I think 11 or some vessel teamed up with a
Yeah.
Louisiana chef, and we went out there and we cooked and. You helped me with the Asian Cup at
Yeah.
third. You should not have because I ended up placing third into it, which was really good for what we're doing, promoting invasive species, edible. So it's one thing I'd like to ask you, what we need to do. You cooked alligator for the athlete.
Yeah.
What about if we bring a whole 30-pound Asian carp, all right, and put it on the grill and make fish tacos
Yeah.
and feed the athlete with a
Wild
caught
we've done stuff
invasive
like
fish.
that before.
No.
I think that we could.
to see the response from
Yeah.
those people? I think you'd be amazed to see those youngsters say, "Wow!"
I think it's a good time for education. Like
Yeah.
there's going to be kids that turn their head away from it just because it's fish. Because not everybody eats fish, but it's a moment there where we definitely have some fish eaters, and I think that there would
Absolutely.
be a natural born inquiry as to what is that, and to be able to tell the story about it.
Yeah, I mean, again, when I was promoting those fish cake, and I went to the university dining hall from all the way up north to down here, and seeing the reaction of those kids, understanding that it is an invasive species that need to be out of the water,
Yeah.
eat the problem. I was
Yeah.
having this particular catch promotion phrase, and those kids understood exactly what we were doing, and they were embracing the fact that, wow, man, I'm gonna eat it.
And the challenge is that you go out and you educate people about it, and then you say, well, where can I get this at? Where can I buy some of this at? And you have to go catch it, or like nobody.
It's a very good topic here because that came to me so many times.
Yeah.
And they were saying, well, I mean, how can I get it? I mean, you brag about this, how good it is, but, I live in New York City.
Yeah.
How can I get Asian Cup? How can I get Nutria? How can I get wild boar? Well, we're doing this, and we've got to start somewhere,
Yeah.
Mike. And you
Yeah.
were always very supportive of my effort here, and you're on board with that. So right now, what we're doing is we're educating the outdoor people living in the countryside, and plenty of them live there. And that if you encounter invasive species, here you go. Put it on the grill, do this, do that. Now, the plan is if you go ahead and open a research center again on invasive species in general, then you can establish those guidelines working with FDA because right now, let me tell you, most policymakers, they need common sense.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable how can I say that? I would like to use the word stupid. That those guidelines are, because one part of the
it's
government,
politics.
the one part of the government will tell you, oh yeah, we need to do this on invasive species, we'll support that, and then the other end of the government, they'll say, oh no, you can't do this because we have regulation that you can't do this. So what we need to do, Mike, and join forces like that, is to create that research center when we have those guidelines for food production out of those invasive species and offer the availability of finished product, convenient to eat, of those invasive species for consumers in general in New York City, Las Vegas, or whatever it is, But until that's not done, then we only can brag how good it is, the difference we can make, and we literally after the outdoors.
People don't cry out for things that they want if they don't know that they want it, right? If you haven't educated anybody about it and they don't know about it, how are they supposed to stand up and speak for it, right? And so, I think that's what's on our shoulders is we need to be educating
and that's what we're doing.
There are definitely people out there who have preconceived notions of what it is, and they're never going to change their mind, and that's fine. Live your life, but don't stand in the way of progress.
Exactly
don't stand in the way of us educating young, impressionable human beings who can make a difference and change for the better, right? And shame on people who stand in the way of making change for better for the power of a dollar. And that greed is so ugly, and it's everywhere.
It's everywhere, and it's hard to even fight. But we have to carry the flag. Mike, and I truly believe that one day, sooner than later, I hope, maybe I won't be around to see it, but I really hope one day that, we will be able to have that research center for invasive species, and not only for food, processing food, but also for all the other invasive species that are not edible. There could be chemistry on so many plants that are invasive that could be good for humanity.
Yeah.
I don't know. Perhaps it could cure the cancer or found, something. But no, we close our eyes on those opportunities, and we spend tons of money into trying to eradicate, because supposedly that's what we want to achieve, eradication. And I've been criticized, with my Asian COP, I was working on that by saying, well, we need to manage the population, and, we don't want to hear that word, managing. We want to eradicate. So those policymakers have this in head, that some of these policymakers, because now things kind of switch around, that still said, oh, no, we need to spend our resources into eradication, which is practically impossible. Both invasive species are here to stay. But again, if we can take them out of the wild, and put up to food or medication or whatever it is, that's good for humanity.
Patience is a virtue. It's interesting because when you talk about these invasive species, you have some of the people that came to the table first. And I associate it kind of moving into a new neighborhood. The first person that knocks on your door when you first move into a neighborhood is somebody who wants something from you, And so it's the person who's kind of slow to come around and slow to trust, who's going to be your best friend and somebody that you can trust.
Yeah.
And I think equally in what we're talking about here, like those early ons that said, "Oh, we have solution for invasive species," they were in it for the dollar.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's
a
the
paycheck.
ones. It's the ones who are kind of like you have to absorb it, you have to educate yourself, you have to and inspect it and understand it greater, rather than just jumping in and saying this is how we're going to fix it, and it and excuse the expression, but pissing money down the drain for the, for what? For an electric fence that shocks everything that passes
we
by?
talked about that, yeah, and the cost on that.
Oh my
It's
God.
astronomical. It's unbelievable. I heard the electric bill on one of these electric fence up north was like $30,000 a day, something like that. I mean, it's just the taxpayers are paying.
The guy who invented that thing and sold it to them is
You know how
sitting
much
back
money he
laughing.
made?
He's
Yeah,
laughing.
absolutely, he's
Yeah.
laughing. Well, now they're talking about talking about this. I think actually I got something here I got to show you.
I feel a little bit like Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey.
And we will
with you right now,
show
Chef.
that to our podcast that this is what is coming up now.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're talking about having this water bubble barrier to protect the Great Lake. Okay, and you can see how many of them they want to build at the.
Water bubble barrier.
The cost on this, I think, is an astronomical $11 billion, something like that, and yet that don't remove the fish. And according to what I know, many scientists said that Asian carp will not survive in the Great Lake, and I understand that because the plankton reproduction, the depth of the water, and these are really river fish. You know that when they spawn eggs, they get fertilized with the current is part of that. Helping that.
Oxygen.
But
and
yet, greed come in play again.
Yeah.
Okay, so they want to do this. Whoever is going to come up with manufacturing those barriers is going to take and pocket God knows how much money, and yet he don't address anything in the South back there. The problem still existing, and they are not removing one single fish out of the water. Isn't it something absurd on saying something like that? And your children, my children's going to pay the tab.
My common sense, and you have to excuse me because I think common sense is not so common anymore. But my common sense is just going crazy looking at this. This.
Right.
Somebody is again sitting back with their teeth, like we're almost there.
Oh yeah, we're
we've
gonna make a
almost
ton
got
of
it.
money.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
retired.
Yeah, like we're selling the biggest
guess
bubble
what?
bath ever.
They don't have no idea if that's going to work. By the way,
Yeah.
reading the article, they still
Yeah.
don't have no idea how well that's going to work. But they're willing to go there and do that simply because the policymakers out there probably will pocket some money too on the same token. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
But that don't address.
But let's go back to the lay folk though. If you put the fish in the fisherman's hands, how many fishermen could you impact by fishing the species and make
Job creation.
Yeah, right, and putting money into their pockets.
The local
thousands,
economy, the impact in local economies. And let me tell you, I travel, and you did too. You just don't have to go very far,
Yeah.
to travel and see how depressed some of those little towns are, where youngsters can't find a job. And yet, many of those folks way back then, they were fishermen, but they have to go and work in plant to supply, the food on the table simply because, the restriction on fishing and on and on and on, they don't work out for them. But if we could, revamp that, and get all those families, many families throughout the entire Mississippi Basin, making $1 or $2 to put, and it's more than $1 or $2, by the way, making a good living, I would say, in catching those invasive Asian carp or the snakehead that just came up to Louisiana now, and on and on. And actually, the snakehead is on the menu in many places, by the way, because it's easy to catch and it's easy to eat. So I don't see a problem with that. Okay, but the Asian carp, that's a big problem.
Yeah, it has its challenges. Those pin bones, those floating pin bones, are crazy. Where did that come from? That's one of God's special creations, right there, brother.
I tell you what, he focused on that fish way more than any other fish. I'm gonna tell you, I don't know what he had
He
in
put
mind.
that one, to challenge the chefs.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right. I think then the good Lord put that fish to challenge us.
Yeah.
And guess what? We did it. We done it. We took care of those bones.
I don't care what anybody says. I've eaten the fish and it eats well. If anybody out there that will eat tilapia and then look over this, I can't take you seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, again, you and I, we're going to have to teamed up, bring a couple of these big Asian carp, and we'll do a little filming on that and feed those athletes and let them educate them to what it is and what they're part of. And I'm telling you, man, it's a win-win situation for sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
But that was really good what you said, because availability. I did a little presentation on Can Be Them, Eat Them not long ago at LSU Hilltop, and I had probably 70 to 80 people came in, and and one of the invitee went on and asked that same question. He said, "Well, what can I get it? Where I get it?" Well, I said, "We are not there yet, but this is a platform that we want to use to be able to one day, feed you with invasive species and the rest of the country, nation, whoever." So, but invasive species are not just here; they also
No, and
worldwide.
I really love that in your book. Some of the plants that you have in there.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't really think about that.
No,
And
dandelion, for instance, which is in everybody's yard.
yeah, right.
I mean, you make a salad out of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely incredible.
My
of course.
grandmother used to make dandelion jelly when we were kids.
There you
It was
go.
the best. I mean, it was a
Absolutely.
treat, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to go back to reach out to Mother Nature for a while,
Absolutely.
and that's going to be because I think the food trend today is so expensive, and we're going to face food shortage. I truly believe in that. And then, little by little, like this young 21-year-old, immediately understand that, my God, I go hunting and I can bring food for weeks instead of going to the grocery store. You see what I'm saying? So
Food insecurity is a real thing as well. And
oh, absolutely. So there are two faces on the coin. As I said, the one that actually you will save the ecosystem with invasive species, that help save the wildlife habitat, and then the other one is having food on the table on that. Forget about the dollar value. Think about that, because they don't going to cost you much to go there and do it.
Yeah.
So, but again, we have to open this research center and do what we need to do, what we are here for, the challenge, and God live us, and chefs can do it. I'm telling you, I know that by fact. I don't care how much I get criticized and how much more I'm going to get criticized, but nobody's going to stop me continue doing what I believe is a true solution on getting those invasive species out of the ecosystem.
Yeah. Well, I believe that. And
So, and you
yeah.
be part of that, as you already are anyway.
Everybody that I know knows that I'm stubborn as hell.
I
and
know that.
persistent.
It's one thing for sure. When I call you, you answer the phone. So you know that, hold on a minute, we got to do this. You understand that. You have kids. How many kids do you have, by the way?
Yeah.
Three. So they're young. They what, in their 17 teenage?
14 to 20.
Yeah, 14 to 20.
And
So
they're at that impressionable age,
they start to understand
Yeah.
what their dad.
They've been paying attention for a long time. They know that Dad works in the kitchen and that I'm passionate about what I do. Like they know that I'm sustainably minded and these things are important to me. They know that I'm an outdoorsman and we educate them about that kind of stuff as well. So,
I am Chef Philippe Parola. Like and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.